Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another handsome episode of Made Man, your favorite podcast dedicated to your favorite show about advertising, Mad Men. Ladies and gentlemen, today I just finished Season 4, Episode 3, The Good News. Where we last left off, it was Christmas time in Mad Men Land, and Don and his secretary have, they had sexual intercourse, to put it bluntly. It looks like she was looking for something more, but Don wasn't. No. Don was getting ready to go to Acapulco for New Year's Eve, for New Year's. Get away, have a little vacation. But our episode didn't start with Don. It started with Joan. Joan is seeing her doctor. Her doctor, who she's on a very nice first name basis with. He's obviously known her for years. She's there to make sure that she can have children, that she can get pregnant, that she can start a family with her husband. It comes up that she's had some quote-unquote procedures. One the doctor did, and one she had to go to some back alley to do, if you know what I mean. Yes, Joni's had a couple abortions. She said that the first one sounded shifty because she said she was a midwife, which means, who knows who this woman was that Joan went to get an abortion. But the second time around, it was the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, you got pregnant again, and, everything that happened with me was fine, so you should be fine to have children. It seems like she wants to rush and have a family with her husband, because her husband, things are kind of sensitive. The fact that he's working, he doesn't get New Year's off. Actually, Joan asked for New Year's off so she could... she asked for a couple days after New Year's off so that they could have some time together. Lane said, no, you can't have a vacation after a vacation. He was kind of a jerk to her. He's like, don't cry to me. You find out later why he was kind of probably on edge. Joan is really upset because, she's like, you're working, then you're off to basic training, and then they're probably going to ship you off to Vietnam. In this episode, I'm going to focus on Joan just right now. This episode, it's tough because they really do something with the husband of Joan where you feel like, this guy is doing his best. He's a nice guy. He's good for her. But in the back of my mind, I always think, well, he's also the same guy that was drunk and raped Joan in Don's office. Don't forget that. Never forget that. Every time you see this guy, I'm waiting for him to bubble over and rage and do something awful. Every time I see him, that's all I see. That's all I will ever see. But they're trying. But they're doing a nice job of trying to make you, trying to sugarcoat or cover, trying to make him look like there's more to him than that. But I think they don't want you to forget. At least I'm not going to forget. I hope they don't want you to forget. Because as good as this guy can seem at times, because of that, he's shit to me. And he always will be. She actually got in an argument with Lane, as I said, who, was like, don't cry to me. Because she was like, I want to have time off and no one's even doing any work anyway. Lane felt bad, so he sent her flowers. Except it didn't quite go as planned. This episode, to me, I thought was going to be basic. The way it was going, it seemed like it was Joan and Don. Don and Joan. It was their stories, no one else. But Joan's story kind of morphed into Lane's story, and then it becomes Lane's story. See, Joan gets this nice box of flowers, and it says, like, really something sweet and like butter her up, like something inappropriate for Joan, something that you would give to someone special. Joan called him on it, slammed the flowers in his face. He was like, well, there's, always going to do like a real Cockney accent, but that's not right. All right. Oh, I'm basically doing Dick Van Dyke doing a British accent. We with me friends. Okay, I'm going on a stupid tangent. What I was trying to say is, Joan got pissed at him, and he's like, there's been some sort of mistake. He calls in his secretary, or as he would say, his secretary. And the thing is the secretary mixed up the cards. So his wife got a card that said, please forgive me, Joan, I think. Forgive me, Joan. And she got the card for the wife. So Joan, basically, they fired the secretary, first of all. And I think Joan kind of, wasn't mad at Lane anymore. Lane was trying to be good. But it went bad for Lane. Later on, Joan is trying to have New Year's Eve with her husband by doing it at Hawaii time. So he came back in the next morning. She has all these Hawaiian stuff, laid out, and she ends up cutting her finger, making him, fresh squeezed orange juice. She cuts her finger pretty bad. Instead of going to the hospital, the husband, who's the doctor, takes out his bag, takes out his little kit, his doctor's bag, and does a really nice job of suturing her up and, talking, being kind of nice to her, sweet to her. And I'm thinking, you son of a bitch. Joan starts really crying. I think just the weight of, she can't get the time off with her husband. The husband has all this, because they had an argument earlier that, she can't get the time off, and he's like, quit your job. She's like, I need the job. And I think it all just bubbled over, and Joan was really crying. And also the fact that, she wants to have children with this guy. Is he going to be going off to Vietnam? What the hell's going on there? I don't know. I wonder, are we going to, so this is the end of 1964 going into 1965. Are we going to see him get shipped off to Vietnam? Are we going to be on the outside watching the Vietnam War? We were on the outside seeing the JFK assassination. It's interesting to see real points of history kind of as the backdrop to these, fictional lives going on. So I wonder if we will see that. I think that would be pretty interesting to see. So that's really Joan's story. Joan's story with those flowers accidentally going to her, the mix up with Lane, becomes Lane's story. But I'm not going to go to Lane's story now. I'm going to jump all the way back to Don Draper. He had to sign a few things for a secretary who's, still kind of looking at him like, we just the other night had, as I said, sexual intercourse. But he was just like, hey, what are you going to do New Year's Eve? And she's like, well, we're going to go to, probably Times Square with some friends. It was scary last year. But we're going to be with a bunch of ladies. But nothing else came of it with her and him. He kind of looked at her longingly, but he was like, Happy New Year. Have a Happy New Year. It was almost like, either he forgot or he's just like, sorry, this is how it's going to be. But nothing else came from that. See, he was leaving to go to Acapulco. But he was stopping off at L.A. first. Actually, Harry wanted him to meet a few people out there in L.A., but Don didn't do it. I'm sorry. I want to yawn. It's so late. It's 9 p.m. Harry was in it for a minute, just talking about meeting some people in L.A. He's like, hell, they'll probably cast you. But he's like, I'm doing things out there. He didn't do whatever Harry wanted to do. The reason he was going to L.A. was so that he could run into Anna Draper, right? Anna's her name. The real Mrs. Draper, quote-unquote Don's first wife. Again, he explained all this to Betty. She still didn't get it. It hurts me that if Betty thinks that what Don was deceiving her with is worth a divorce, because I don't think it is. Well, I mean, it's not good to be deceiving her, but you can see why he did. Obviously, oh my God, the yawns. Obviously, the copious amounts of infidelity would also be grounds for a divorce. So it's not like Don doesn't deserve it. But he's always so sweet to the original Mrs. Draper, and she loves him. And I love it when he's out there. He isn't Don, because she was married to Don. He's Dick. It's just Dick, Dick, Dick. That did not come out right. But, it's... I'm cracking myself up. I can't even go on. Totally just distracted myself. She's very much like, hi, Dick. I love you, Dick. I am a man-child. So, obviously, Don, I don't know, what do I call him while he's out there? I guess I call him Dick. He's out there to visit her, to check up on her. She knows that he's been divorced, and she's like, maybe you can bring the kids out. I'd love to meet them someday. Oh, excuse me. She's in a cast because she said she fell and broke her ankle or something frying eggs. I don't know how that works, and the truth is I don't think it was frying eggs. Well, it definitely wasn't. There's something else going on. And it's actually worse than you think. It's not just someone... No, we'll get there. So, while he's visiting, she has some people checking up on her because of the cast. It's her sister and her niece. And the niece I recognized right away because I watch all those DC shows on CW. Look, I'm really into Mad Men. It's a great show. It is like a quintessential television landmark show. And I'm glad I'm watching it. But I also watch a lot of hot garbage. You know what? I shouldn't say hot garbage. I watch a lot of stuff that is very much more youth and superhero oriented. And one of those shows is called DC's Legends of Tomorrow. And there's an actress on there. I think her name is Katie Lotz, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. And she, we see a much younger, not a much younger version, but a younger version of her as the niece. And the moment I saw her, I thought, "Oh my goodness, this is Don's next conquest, or at least attempted conquest." And I was right, but we'll get there. And the sister seems more like snooty and like, "Oh, what are you doing here? And you need this, and you need that." And the sister's more laid back. "How you doing, groovy dude?" That was bad. And Anna Draper wants her to stick around, hang out, meet Don. So the sister reluctantly lets them hang out. And she's like, she also said to her niece, "I also know you have grass," which for you hipsters, that's what marijuana was called back in the 60s and 70s and maybe the 80s. Before, I don't think it was called weed back then. Maybe it was, but it was definitely called grass. You're going to smoke some grass. But they ended up, Don's like, "Let's go. Come on, we're going to get, there's a place he likes to eat." He takes them both out there. And they hang out and they're talking. And, she's a college student. So she's talking about the time, being, like people are having a sit-in or some kind of demonstration probably about the Vietnam War. She's like, somebody's got to go to class, so she's not doing that stuff. And, she sees Don as this older guy. And Don knows her. Don's like, "The last time I saw you, you didn't have any teeth." Which again makes it even creepier, what Don tries to do later. And, they talk and they hang out, and Don ends up slow dancing with her. She's like, Anna Draper's like, "Keep your hands at 10 and 2, don't be inappropriate." But they slow dance while Don is still holding a cigarette in his hand. I love the things they can do while smoking on Mad Men. If smoking was good for you, I'd probably do it because it's just so damn cool. I want to smoke and I want to drink. Thank you, Don Draper. So they go home, and she's like, "All right, I should head out." Don's like, "Let me drive you." She's like, "No, I'm going to hitchhike. Maybe you'll be safer." So Don takes her home, and this is what I'm like. You see Don have the kind of glass over eyes where he's a little foggy. He's probably a little drunk. And he's like, "I'm going to make my Don Draper move now." Puts his arm around her, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "What do you think I'm doing, baby?" I don't know. He didn't say that, but he's like, "You're so young and so pretty." And then she just was like, "I have to tell you something." And this is where it gets bad. You see, Anna didn't break her leg from the frying eggs or whatever. She broke her leg because she has brittle bones, because she has cancer in her bones. And she wanted to let him know that, because if he leaves and something happens to her and she never sees him again, he never sees her again. She wanted him to know. I guess she felt guilty, but even worse, because Don's like, oh my God, of course she wouldn't say anything, and the girl's like, oh, she doesn't know. And Don's like, what? They didn't tell her. They're keeping it from her. I don't know why the sister is doing this, but I guess it's so advanced, there's nothing they can do, and that they just rather keep her in the dark, and instead of having her kind of feel bad, I guess. I don't know. Don's like, what the F are you talking about? We have to do something. I have to say something. And she's like, you can't say anything. You should just go to Acapulco. Actually, she didn't say that. She's like, you can't say anything. I wasn't supposed to, you can't let him know that I told you, but I wanted you to know, but you can't say anything. We don't want her to know. And, that was, it's pretty terrible. So, Dawn was going to leave the next day, and Anna wakes up, goes out into her living room, and there was a stain from a leak on the wall, and Dawn's painting it. He's painting it, and she's like, I thought you had to go. And he's in his T-shirt and shorts, and he's like, I could stick around a little longer, change of plans. She's like, well, I could watch Don Draper. I could watch Dick Whitman, she said. I could watch Dick Whitman, paint in my living room in shorts any day of the week. She knows he's a younger, hunk of a man. And though I don't see her as much older, she just loves Dick Whitman. Dick Whitman loves her. And it's like an aunt or a sister or a confidant or a best friend. It's just something, they just have a relationship that is real. It's and it was built upon a lie, but it's still one of the realest, honest to goodness relationship that Don Draper, Dick Whitman has in his life. It's one of the few. It might be the only one that he has. And, he knows. She doesn't know. And you could see Don just feels terrible. And he's like, I have to tell you something. No, I'm sorry. That's not happens yet. So the sister shows up and she sees him in shorts. She's like, goodness gracious, couldn't keep your pants on. And then he goes out and he wants to yell at her. She's bringing groceries. And he's like, I have to talk to you. She goes, I know all about you. You brought 2:30 last night. That's when he brought the daughter home. He's like, how could you not tell her? Nothing happened with Dawn. No, Dawn wanted something to happen, but nothing did. He's like, how could you not tell her? She's like, there's nothing we can do. He goes, I'm here now, and I'm going to bring her to the best doctors. And, I don't know what quack you're saying, you're dealing with. And she's like, we brought her to specialists. He's like, specialists? Then she knows something's up, The specialist said there's nothing we can do. Okay? I'm here, and you can't do anything. You're not her family. You're just a man with a checkbook or something like that. And the best thing you could do is go off to Acapulco and go, and just, that's the best thing you could do. And he felt like a punch in the gut. He brings the groceries in. He's like, listen, I have to tell you something. She's like, what is it? And I thought, don't do it, Dawn. And he thought better of it, because why should he be the one to kind of crush her with this horrible news when he's just coming in and going and then leaving the sister to deal with it. It's terrible that they did this, but it's not his place. He saw that and he decided, I have to leave. I have to go. And she's like, oh, that's okay. Of course. Who cares? Don't worry about it. She's thinking, I'll see you another time. He's thinking, I'm probably never going to see you again. I don't know. I have no idea. We're never going to see her again. When I watch certain shows, I like to look on IMDb. Who's this actor? Oh, they're on 7 episodes of the show. Cool. But if I look up and see this woman's on other episodes up until, years later, then I know she's back in the show. So I'm trying not to do that with Mad Men because I don't want to know when people come back. So this might be the last time we ever see her. And is it going to be like he sees in a newspaper clipping? I don't even know if how that would work. You know, in California and New York, he'd probably never know. Maybe he'd get a call from the sister or from this niece. I don't know. Somebody, if anything happened, because you feel like he'd want to be there. Maybe the next time he's out there, it's for a funeral. I don't know. Oof. Just the thought of it. It's just sad because she's such a nice person. But he's like, I have to go. She's like, oh, that's fine. That's fine. He's like, I'll bring the kids for Easter. She's like, that'd be great. And I think he's saying, you know, I probably won't because I won't get a chance to. But it just was really sad. And then the next shot of him, he is on an aeroplane. And I'm thinking to myself, it seemed like it was near the end of the episode. Oh, he's going off to Acapulco. But he's not. The next day you see him walking into Sterling Draper Rice. See, I remembered. And he goes to unlock the door, but the door's already open. He goes in. This is kind of where our shows have crisscrossed. The stories I was talking about before. Earlier, it was Joan's story, and they were going back between Joan and Don. And then Joan and Lane's story crisscrossed. Joan's story is done. And Lane's story now picks up. Don goes into the office. He's like, hey, what do you do? I thought you were supposed to be in England. And he's like, I thought you were supposed to be in Acapulco. He's like, oh, change my mind. So I think he was too distraught after seeing her with the story. So he decided instead of going to Acapulco to hook up with some chicas, he decided to come home. And I guess hook up with some chicas. We'll get there. So Lane and him are the only ones in the office. And he's like, do you mind if I have a drink? And she's like, oh, go right ahead. Oh, that's not the accent either. One day I'll get it. It's very proper. Maybe it's more like this. But it's not like I'm a butler. Now I have a butler's voice. I feel like I sound like Mr. Belvedere. So Don, I lose my brain sometimes. Don goes over to have a drink, and he's like, oh, my father gave me this. He's like, oh, what is it? I don't even know. He gave it to me. He's the alcoholic who, thinks giving these kind of things is good or whatever. Brings you closer together. So they open up some probably really expensive liquor. Don takes a sip, and he's like, ooh, there's no bite. They're like, there's no after bite. They have another drink. Then they're just kind of like hanging out, and Don's like, we're going to the movies. And Don starts filling up like a flask with more of this alcohol, and they're picking out all these different movies. All these like classic and classy sounding movies. Oh, let's go to this one. Oh, she's in this. Oh, I don't want to see this one. Oh, what's this movie about flowers? He's like, no, not that one. That was funny. There's a little callback for Lane and the flowers issue. So they talk about this like movie that sounds like something Umbrellas, starring this famous actress. He's like Catherine Deneuve or something like that. They're like, oh, ooh, that'd be nice. Cut to Godzilla. They went to see Godzilla, which was awesome. And they're just hanging out in the theater. Not many people there. I think it's New Year's Day. They're drinking from the flask, and they're just having loud conversations. This movie's excellent. And woman's shushing her, and then Lane starts yelling her in like fake Japanese. And they're just a couple of drunk dudes. They go out for steak afterwards, and Lane starts to confide in him about the fact that what was going on with his wife. Maybe he mentioned it before, actually. He might have mentioned why he was still there, that his family didn't want to go, and his family didn't want to come. But he was telling him at the dinner, that, what did he say? He said, I tried to send her flowers. That didn't go very well. That, she didn't want to come back here. And we've had a little fight. And I tried to send her flowers. That followed up with a very somber phone call where she told me she wasn't coming back. And then she put my son on the phone, which is kind of that way of saying, say hi to your dad because you're not going to see him for a while. And Don's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. He's like, how did you know it was over? He's like, I didn't have any choice in it. But he goes, I'm not one for giving advice. He's like, listen, I'm supposed to meet a lady friend later. How about I call her and have her bring a friend? He's like, oh, no. He's like, why not? He's like, oh, all right, let's do it. So, boom, the next thing they're in a club seeing a comedian who the comedian sees these two guys standing there together and just starts making gay jokes about, them, being a couple and who they look at each other across the men's room, stuff that was harmless, but also like, it went from harmless to, and then he just said, I'll get that. So he's, Lane yells, "We're not homosexual, we're divorced." Oh, that was my best Lane yet so far. And he's like, "Oh, divorced." And then the two women show up, and the comedian's like, "Oh, I guess you weren't a couple queers." I was like, "Whoa!" Like, and nobody like bats an eye. Not like if a comedian did that now, I feel like people will be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa," or because you can, make the joke of, the two guys. I guess that's. No, it's probably. It's definitely offensive, but the downright like inappropriate language, you couldn't get away with that at all now. But it was just weird, and no one batted an eye. They're like, ha 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 ha. The two women show up, and then they get out of there. It didn't last very long. Don's like, let's get out of here, and I think she said, "Oh, this woman's from this place, or goes to this college, or something like that, or works at this place." I don't know. And I don't remember ever seeing this woman before for Don either. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I do. Is this the slap me in the face woman? Okay. So, they go back to the house, and they're one of the women's in the kitchen, and the other, she's like, "Get in here and help me," to the other woman, and Lane says to her, "This woman seems like she knows your way around her kitchen." And I didn't realize that's him saying to me, it's like, "Oh, you've seen this woman before." But he's like, "Yeah, whatever. I don't know." And the other woman comes back. She's like, "You want to show me around?" He's like, "Oh, right." They almost go into Don's room. Don's like, "Not in there." They go into another room, and they start getting it on. And outside, Don's with his woman, and she's like, "Let's go." He goes, "No, let's do it right here." They start getting it on, and then cut to the next day. Lane comes out dressed up. He's like, I'm thirsty. I was going to say parched, but I think he just said thirsty. And Don's like, "Oh, I'll make some coffee." "Oh, just some water." And she's like, he goes, "How much? I feel like I should pay for last night." He's like, no, it's on me. He goes, "That woman's not from," he goes, "I know that woman's not from there," or whatever. Maybe he said that earlier. I forget exactly. Oh, no. Don said, "Oh, she's definitely not from whatever place you said." And the woman's like, "Oh, I just know that he would like hearing that." But turns out that this woman, I believe, was a prostitute, and she cost $25. Lane gave him $30. He's like, "How much was she?" And I was like, "Whoa, I didn't realize that." And now it makes sense. This other woman, the one that knows her way around his kitchen, that's the prostitute that he had over before, right? Is it the same person? Like, I honestly did not recognize her, but maybe it is the same person, or maybe it's the same service. But Don obviously gets prostitutes and gets them to slap him around sometimes. And he got Lane a prostitute too. And Lane was actually, "Thank you very much for the welcome destruction." And Lane needed that, I guess, since his wife left him. He needed that. Let's cut to the end of the show, where we see Roger for the first time. We see Pete, I think, for the first time. I think Pete was there. Harry was there. Don was already there. Joan was there. Lane probably went and got cleaned up because he's like, "Oh, sorry, he came in a little late." We did see Peggy. She's the one who gave Joan the flowers, but that was all she did. She did mention she was going to spend New Year's with her boyfriend, but it kind of got blown away because Joan got all pissed off about the flowers. But she wasn't in the meeting. And the show ended with Joan saying, all right, everybody, let's get ready for 1965. And you see Don's face, and then the show ends. One thing I forgot to mention was Lane said to Don, he's been going over all the paperwork, all the money, all the information. I can't think of the word. And Don's like, I can't take any more bad news. And he goes, no, as though I am a stickler for money, and money's tight. We had an excellent year, a very good year. So we'll see what 1965 brings. It almost, that line and that term, that like the way it ended, almost felt like that's the end of the season. Like 1965 is coming up next season, but no, it's coming up next episode. And for you, that means it's coming up next week. I think I covered everything. I like to think I covered everything. Oh, I talked for a half hour. I watch these episodes sometimes, and I don't take any notes. I've tried to take notes, and it bogs down me watching it, and it just ruins me talking about it. I finish it, and I'm thinking, while I'm watching, I'm going, am I going to remember all this? Am I going to remember? Oh, I'll remember this. I think I'll remember this. And just lo and behold, I hit record, and here we are, a half hour of me blibbering and blabbering. I just made up a word, blibbering. And it's almost as long as the episode itself. Folks, that's it. Thank you very much for listening and subscribing. My name is Mike. You can find me on Twitter at MadeManPod. That's MadeManPod. The website is fansnotexperts.com/mademan. Or you can just go to fansnotexperts.com. I might be redesigning it soon. I found a template I like that I'm going to try to incorporate. I like to do that and play with the code and play with the blogger because I'm a nerd. You can email me, mademan@fansnotexperts.com. Believe me, you won't. No one ever has. But you can. At least, I don't think anyone ever has. It's supposed to forward right to my email address. And I've never gotten one. I do get tweets, though. So tweet me. Tweet me well. Will you please tweet me nice? Tweet me well? Oh, don't tweet me bad. Oh, my God. This is where I realize that I'm rambling and talking too long. So, folks, we'll be back next Friday for another episode, talking about another episode. I've yet to miss 1 week. It's exciting. And with June coming up, if you want to hear my voice every single day, subscribe to the podcast Geek Mentality. You can find it at fansnotexperts.com too. The month of June, I do a podcast episode every single day. I'll probably have 1 or 2 before then, at least talking about the Game of Thrones finale. But I watch a movie every day, the movie I've never seen, and I podcast about it every day. 30 movies, 30 podcasts, 30 days. I've been doing the movie month, I call it, this will be my 6th year doing it. I think it's my 4th year of doing it as a podcast. I used to write these blogs, and that's a lot harder than just turning on your recorder and kind of giving your thoughts about a movie. Sometimes I only talk for 10 minutes, and that's fine. The thing is, I did this to start catching up on movies. I did it once, and I said, I'm going to do it again. And now I kind of hold off on watching a lot of movies until June. So I'm excited to watch 30 movies and do 30 podcasts while at the same time still bringing you a Made Man episode every single Friday. So, folks, that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for telling a friend. Thank you so much for bringing this up at your meetings at work. If you could just, when it gets to your turn at a work meeting, just say, listen, before I get to this week's updates, I'd like to talk to you about a little podcast. A little podcast starring a little man. A man who is on a journey unlike any other, where he, that's me, goes on an adventure to become a made man. Go Bruins, because the Celtics blew it.
Fans not experts.